It's the 302nd day of the Israel-Hamas conflict and the 870th day of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Efforts to bring about peace between Ukraine and Russia are not making progress. The two sides are neither talking to each other nor talking to intermediaries. In contrast, Israel and the Hamas have held many rounds of talks mediated by the US, Egypt and Qatar for a ceasefire and the release of hostages from Gaza. But the spectacular and audacious assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, in the heart of Iran, has just made the situation in West Asia a lot messier, more dangerous and more unpredictable. It threatens a carefully constructed equilibrium and a delicate balance of power in the region among Israel, the Palestinians, the Arab world and the Gulf. Now the question is, what happens to the ceasefire talks between Israel and the Hamas? 2. Will tensions further rise in West Asia or the Middle East, as some call it? 3. Will it give rise to a wider regional war? 4. Can the global South, which is already reeling from the effects of a West versus Russia conflict, afford to see the Israel-Hamas war spiral out of control? And 5. Can and should India play the role of a peacemaker in the Ukraine-Russia and Israel-Hamas conflicts? We'll talk more on that in just a bit, but first let me take you back a few years. Something happened in the March of 2018. Saudi Arabia opened its airspace for the first time to a commercial flight to Israel. The airline was Air India, the erstwhile flag carrier of India. An Air India flight took off from New Delhi. It flew non-stop over Oman, Saudi Arabia and Jordan to reach Tel Aviv in Israel. And with that ended a 70-year-old ban on planes flying to or from Israel through Saudi Arabia's airspace. Air India flew over Saudi Arabia at 40,000 feet for about 3 hours, coming within 60 kilometers of its capital, Riyadh. It crossed over into Jordan, then the occupied West Bank, and finally landed in Israel. Now, the flight was the result or culmination of behind-the-scenes activity among Israel, Saudi Arabia, and take a guess, India. Now, Saudi Arabia and Israel do not have diplomatic relations, much like the rest of the Arab world. Only Egypt and Jordan are the only two Arab countries that have signed a peace treaty with Israel. Israel's then Tourism Minister Yariv Levin told an Indian news agency, the Press Trust of India, and I quote him here, "India played a very important bridge, not only between India and us, but also between Israel and other countries in this region." India's then ambassador to Israel, Pawan Kapoor, said that a lot of effort had gone into it for 2 years with support from the prime ministers of both India and Israel. What I'm getting at is this. As India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar says, India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi is quote-unquote forging relationships with multiple and often competing powers. Now, Prime Minister Modi spoke about the Israel-Hamas conflict in an interview to the UK's Financial Times newspaper in December 2023, and I quote him here, "I remain in touch with the leaders in the region. If there is anything India can do to take forward efforts towards peace, we will certainly do so." Prime Minister Modi spoke about the Ukraine-Russia conflict in an interview to an Indian news agency, ANI. He said, and again I quote, "I have been very friendly with both the presidents. I can publicly say to President Putin that this is not the time for war. I can also say publicly to Ukraine that we should follow the path of dialogue, and this is because I have credibility." So what explains India's desire or intent to play peacemaker? Now, Prime Minister Modi answered the question for you when he spoke to an Indian TV channel in May 2024. He said that earlier India's approach was to keep its distance from other countries. But today, India's approach is one of proximity, to be close to other countries. Here's the exact quote. "We thought we would maintain this much difference from it, but then I said that this would not be our approach. Our approach will be how close we will be to each other. Earlier, the criteria were based on distance, but my criteria were based on closeness. So I brought up the topic of proximity." What it did was to spawn a competition among countries to get closer to India. He said, and again I quote him here, "The nations are thinking, I am with Modi, I am with India, and my opponent is there, I should go a little further." So today there is competition in the world as to how to get closer to India. Now, Prime Minister Modi told a financial newspaper published from France in July 2023 that India has always been a contributor to global peace and progress. He said, "I see India being that strong shoulder that if Global South has to make that high jump, India can be that shoulder to propel it ahead. For the Global South, India can also build its linkages with Global North. So in that sense, this shoulder can become this bridge of sorts. So I feel that what we need is to strengthen this shoulder, this bridge, so that linkages between the North and South can become stronger and the Global South can itself become stronger." If you remember, Narendra Modi made an effort to stop Israel's bombing in Gaza during the holy month of Ramzan. He told an Indian TV channel, "I sent my special envoy to Israel and asked him to convey and explain to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that at least do not carry out bombings in Gaza during Ramzan. Israel made every effort to follow it, but in the end there was a fight for 2-3 days." Now let's not forget that Modi is one of the few world leaders to have met and spoken to both Putin and Zelensky. Modi told the French daily, "I told them that India is ready to support all genuine efforts that can help bring this conflict to an end." Modi met Zelensky most recently at the G7 Outreach Summit hosted by Italy in the month of June. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has said that India may play a central role in facilitating a negotiating process for cessation of hostilities in Ukraine. And then Modi met Putin in Moscow when he visited Russia on a bilateral visit in the month of July. Putin conferred the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle, the first called on Modi. The award was announced in April 2019 but conferred on Modi only now. It's Russia's highest civilian honor. Now, Modi has received many such awards since he came to power in 2014. It reflects his standing in the world. Now, the King Abdulaziz sash by Saudi Arabia in April 2016. It's Saudi Arabia's highest civilian honor. The Grand Collar of the State of Palestine in February 2018. The rule of Nishan Izzuddin by Maldives in June 2019. It's the highest civilian honor of the Maldives awarded to foreign dignitaries. The Order of Zayed by the United Arab Emirates in August 2019. It's again the UAE's highest civilian honor. The King Hamad Order of the Renaissance by Bahrain in August 2019. The Legion of Merit by the United States in December 2020. The Companion of the Order of Fiji in May 2023. The Grand Companion of the Order of Logohu by Papua New Guinea in May 2023. The Order of the Nile by Egypt in June 2023. The Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor by France in July 2023. The Grand Cross of the Order of Honor by Greece in August 2023. Modi is the first foreign head of government to receive this honor. And last but not the least, the Order of the Druk Gyalpo by Bhutan in March 2024. It's the highest civilian honor of Bhutan, and Modi is the first foreign leader to be given this prestigious award. Now, Ajay Bisari, a former Indian High Commissioner to Canada and Pakistan, had this to say about Modi. Today, very few global statesmen other than Modi enjoy enough heft and credibility to speak in the same morning with heads of Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia, US and France. Bisari goes on to say, To realize its vision of a developed economy by 2047, India must not just adapt to, but also mitigate the rising geopolitical risks these contests pose to the global economy. Another former Indian diplomat, Ruchira Kamboj, says India's ancient philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam positions it uniquely as a mediator and conciliator in world affairs. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means the world is one family in Sanskrit. Kamboj was until recently India's ambassador to the United Nations. In November 2023, she addressed a conference at a university in New York City. She said India's strategic position, coupled with its non-aligned history, enables it to engage with various power blocs constructively. I'm quoting her here. India has shown that it is possible to maintain friendly relations with countries having differing ideologies and governance models. This ability to navigate complex diplomatic waters showcases India as a potential mediator in international conflicts. Shkridit Bajpai of Chatham House, a London-based think tank, writes in the Nikkei Asia weekly news magazine of Japan that in offering a worldview that is non-Western but not explicitly anti-Western like that of China, India is well placed as a potential bridge between the West and the global South. Now, you should know that India has played a crucial role in conflict resolution over the decades. Take the case of the Korean Peninsula. India organized the Asian Relations Conference in 1947 to promote cultural, intellectual and social exchange among countries in Asia. In 1948, India led the United Nations Temporary Commission on Korea and conducted a peaceful election, which led to the creation of the first democratically elected government in Korea. In 1953, India led commissions that oversaw the repatriation of prisoners of war after the end of the Korean War. Or Nepal, for that matter, India supported Nepal's peace process. A 12-point agreement was signed in New Delhi in November 2005 between Nepal's political parties and the Maoists. So India is uniquely positioned to play the role of a peacemaker. It is on good terms with all parties to a dispute. Its credentials as the world's largest democracy are universally recognized. It has an established track record of peace building. And what's more, Prime Minister Modi enjoys an approval rating of 74%, making him the most popular leader in the world. This according to a recent survey by Morning Consult. But there are other factors at play too. For instance, would the parties concerned accept a mediator at all? What influence can India bring to bear on the parties to a dispute? Will India put its friendships at stake to forge peace? And will India's unresolved disputes with some of its neighbors and its own opposition to third-party mediation come in the way of its peace initiatives to end conflicts in distant lands? Now, the short answer is we don't know yet. But what we do know is this. As PM Modi says, India is a force of good in the world and indispensable for global unity, cohesion, peace and prosperity at a time of great turmoil and risks of fragmentation in the world. Clearly, the world can ignore India only at its own peril. And now to our weekly poll, where you, the viewer, get to have your say. I've just told you about the prospects for and the pros and cons of India as a peacemaker. What do you think? Can India play a peacemaker in Ukraine, Russia and Israel-Hamas conflicts? Yes or no, I repeat. Can India play a peacemaker in Ukraine, Russia and Israel-Hamas conflicts? Yes or no? Tell us what you think. You can post your replies on our social media handles at Facebook, X and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you.